Hi everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Urban Pixie and I am new to the world of YouTube and Patreon. I have been inspired recently to share my story publicly, which is a very difficult story. I personally feel that the story that I have to share is necessary. It's going to be rough, and I have had a lot of anxiety trying to decide whether or not this is something that I really, really want to do. I've given it a lot of thought, and I have watched a lot of YouTubers like Mr. Atheist and recently found Shannon Q and a few others who, Telltale is the other one, who have inspired me to go ahead and be brave and do the right thing. Maybe that's not the right phrase to use, but to do the hard thing and go ahead and talk about what I've endured in my life. And my goal here is to help somebody, anyone, even if it's just one person. I would love to be able to answer questions, give advice, I guess, to the best of my ability. So here's the thing. I am formerly a Christian. I also grew up with, essentially I grew up in a messianic evangelical family. And what that means is, if you don't know, is that my family had a church, congregation, whatever you want to call it, that merged Judaism and Christianity. And so, essentially we're worshiping in this congregation like Jews and then also like Christians. And so I've grown up with the religious practices of both of these, Christianity and Judaism. And my parents were, let's say, they were in ministry of sorts, and we moved to Jerusalem when I was like 2. And then we kind of went back and forth. So anyway, my story is long. It's in depth. It is not something I can tell in 5 minutes. It's not something I can tell in 10 minutes or even an hour. It's something that's going to take many videos and probably many questions that I would answer from viewers possibly, in order for me to get everything out and talk about what I went through and the pain and suffering that came from it, and essentially PTSD. I was diagnosed with complex post-traumatic stress disorder because of the home that I was raised in. And also, not to mention that I lived in a war zone. I was living in Jerusalem. We moved there when I was 2, so I'm 42. So that was early 80s. And at the time, there was a war going on between Lebanon and Israel. And of course, we lived close to an air raid siren, and they went off frequently. And then when I was in 1991, after the Gulf War, we moved back. And so I don't know how many of you know this, and a lot of people just don't. But in the 90s, there was what I think they call the Second Intifada. And it was the constant suicide bombings that were happening in Jerusalem. Well, I mean, all over Israel, but it was essentially the Palestinian Jewish struggle was happening. It was really very much at its peak during this time. I was attending high school. I rode the city buses every day, and every day I thought was my last day on earth. Nobody comes out of a situation like that without suffering from some kind of post-traumatic stress. So, coupled with the religious abuse that I suffered in my life at the hands of my family and the church, the evangelical church, but I can't just say evangelical because living in Israel, it's this melting pot of, in every religion, it's this melting pot of multiple denominations. So even living in Jerusalem, the churches that I attended were this conglomeration of, denominations. I went to a Baptist church, but it was so many people from all over the world came to this Baptist church. So we all had different ideas of how we should worship. I also attended a Canadian Assembly of God church. On Saturdays, I attended this Baptist church. And then on Sunday nights, I attended a Canadian, what did I say? Sorry. I'm trying to remember all the terms. Assembly of God. And I was deep into this. Since I was born, I was baptized. And then at the age of 8, I got saved, I guess, and then I wasn't baptized as a baby. I was what they call dedicating. So it's this, I know in Catholicism, they baptize babies. A lot of times in evangelical churches, or maybe Baptist, I'm not really sure about all the denominations, how they do it, but they usually do like a dedication kind of ceremony where it's like, we dedicate this baby to the Lord so that they will, I guess, if they die, they won't go to hell. I don't know, it's crazy. Anyway, so at the age of 8, I got saved, and then I guess, I made that decision on my own. And then at the age of 9, I decided that I wanted to be baptized. And that at the time was through, this is crazy. I can't tell you how many days a week I spent in church, but I think it was at least 4. So at the time when I was 9 years old, I was baptized by our Assembly of God minister. So at that time, we were also attending church services on Saturdays and Sundays. So my dad was a pastor and my mom was a worship leader on Saturdays at a Messianic congregation. And then on Sundays, we attended the Assembly of God congregation. It was crazy. I could go on and on, but we have time. So in a nutshell, that's where I started. And then when we moved overseas, when we moved to Jerusalem, I was even more involved in the church. And I was even more involved. As a teenager, I was on the worship team. I sing and I'm a cellist. So the worship teams were just so like, oh my God, you play cello. We want you on the worship team. I was sought after as a musician because, it's not a common instrument for someone to play. And so they wanted me to play with them, which I agreed to because I felt pushed a lot of the time. But I enjoy playing. So for me, it was like, okay, whatever. Like, I'll do this thing outside of school. So as a teenager, I was deep into it and did a lot of mission trips, which some of you may understand coming from a Mormon background. That's something they're supposed to do, I believe. I don't know. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know everything. I know a lot of things, but I don't know everything. I understand that in the Mormon faith, you are required to have a mission. So I've been watching Mr. Atheist a lot, and he explains a lot of these things about the Mormon church and what they do. So this is my understanding based on knowledge I had as a kid, and then things I have learned from Mr. Atheist. But evangelicals believe that it's your calling all the time. So if you're not ministering to somebody, talking about Jesus or talking about your faith, then you aren't doing your job. So a mission trip for a teenager is very normal, especially in the summers. And so teenagers usually plan through their church to take mission trips, and they raise the money and whatnot. So I've been on a lot of those as well. And so I've traveled the world several times, which is cool. I really enjoyed it. But anyway, so this is my introduction to you guys, and to just kind of get a video out there. And I think I'm just gonna do this raw and not edit anything for right now, just because I'd like to get my start here. Although I am learning editing, and I'm learning like sound, and I'm learning like how to do background and lighting. This video is not going to be the best I've ever done, of course. It was a moment where I'm like, I want to talk, I want to say things, I want to get this out there. And I felt very inspired because today I spent hours watching a lot of the videos on, and I'd like to link them, but I don't know how to do that yet, so bear with me. I watched a lot of the videos on forgiveness that Shannon Q has done, and then the one that they did together, it was kind of a live show. I'm sorry, Shannon Q and Mr. Atheist did together kind of a live show, but it was like questions that I think had been sent in. And that really inspired me to go ahead with this first video and to get something out there, because these are all things that I want to touch on. My life has not been peachy at all. I, again, have a lot of difficult stories to tell. And some of them are cool, some of them are interesting, and everything I've learned from, but most of all, I've had to learn to deprogram. And that's the point of doing these videos, is to get this out there so that people can understand that they're not alone, that this is, what they're feeling is real, and what they're going through is real, and that someone is here for them. And that if we stand together, we're stronger. And this is what I'm seeing from the other YouTubers who are atheists like myself, who have come from a religious background and have found their path to deprogramming from the brainwashing that's happened, and the traumas that they've suffered from, the religious leaders and whatnot. So that's what I'm here to talk about. I would love to start answering questions. I'm going to do my best with videos. I'm going to try to do them once a week if I can, or more. I am a college student, so I'm pretty busy, especially this coming fall. I start at the end of August. So I will do my best to get things out there and answer questions if they come in for any viewers that I might have, and we will go from there. So thanks for tuning in, and I hope that I can reach somebody. Like I said, even if it's just one person, that's like all I want. But I'm going to be doing this often, so let's start here, and we'll go from there. Thanks for tuning in. And I will hopefully hear from you, and we'll talk about that maybe the next time I'm able to make a video. Thanks.